Okay, welcome everyone. I am here with the amazing Emma, aka Shortbread. How
Hello.
are you? Just so you know, Emma and I go way back to 2011. We met in London on the breaking scene. We were both training in the same space under Coach Kev. Who knows? We may talk about Coach Kev at some point in this journey today. And Emma and I tend to we have lots of chats about our journeys on the scene. That's how I came to invite Emma to be a part of the R&D for Ladylike back in the day, because you know the conversations that we've had, we're always kind of like deconstructing and opening and questioning. So it's such an honor to have you here in this space.
Honor to be in this space.
Thank you. And Emma was also involved in I Am All Woman, the video that we put together in lockdown. There were 33 of us, and Emma was one of the 33 with a beautiful piece of movement. Oh. So that's why we're inviting her here today. So I thought it'd be really cool, Emma, to just start with a little bit about your journey, how you came to London, how you got into breaking, you know, your journey from Scotland, from Stirling, right?
Yes.
What happened? How did you come here or there?
Okay, well, here or there, wherever we are. Okay, so I will try and condense this, but I'm really rubbish at condensing things, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay. It's interesting.
So I was always athletic and very sporty and played football, so that was kind of my movement outlet, and was always really into music, hip-hop music, rap music, not limited to those genres, but you know, I was really interested in music, and you know, specifically went through a phase where I was obsessed with Eminem. And you know, Eminem and Timbaland, I think, were like two artists that I was like pretty obsessed with, and would kind of just be there, ear glued to the speaker to try and figure out what was going on. And was saying to you earlier, Ella, that I would imagine these match of the day like scenarios where I would be scoring a goal, because I was a striker. I'd be scoring, and then the music would play really loud, and I would do like, you know, the epic celebration, like I suppose like you would see on FIFA, you know, like the kind of FIFA computerized celebrations. So I think I always was yearning for this like marriage of movement and music, that I guess I would invent for myself, playing football or whatever. And you know, apart from like dancing to Five in the bedroom with my sister and her friend, like, and I was in an all white Reebok tracksuit. I think that was the only dancing I'd ever done in my life. Although that did stand out as a big memory, like as an 11-year-old. So I think I was onto something. But yeah, so I kind of like watched, a friend of mine showed me a film, You Got Served, a classic street dance film, and I had tried to do like a baby freeze on his carpet, or like he tried to show me a baby freeze or something. And then from then I was like looking up classes and tried to find things in my area. Being from Stirling, there wasn't very much in my area, but I did end up, my first teacher is a man called Martin Robinson, and he was a martial artist, contemporary dancer, and a b-boy. So he like could do bits of everything, you know, and he was kind of like a bit of a claim to fame, you know, because he was in Kylie Minogue's which one was it, Can't Get You Out of My Head video. You know, I was kind of like, oh, Martin, all hail Martin. So he was my first teacher, and then I ended up going to learn from some Turkish b-boys in Glasgow once a week, as well as those hip-hop classes. And this was when I was around 15, 16. I had to kind of distance myself from football, as it was just becoming a bit too much for me to do both simultaneously, and for like a number of other reasons it was becoming harder for me to commit to the team that I was in. I was in Falkirk Ladies FC, represent. Yep, and it was great times. But yeah, so long story short, I'm making this even longer than the version I told you before, Ella. I went to Scottish School of Contemporary Dance, and then from there auditioned for London Contemporary Dance School and Laban, and got into Laban and went there to study, and was, you know, that was kind of where I knew I really wanted to be in London, because it was so multicultural. It was a hub for like so many different things that I just knew there was like a bigger world out there that I was just desperate to be a part of. So it wasn't only to kind of go study contemporary dance. If anything, that was kind of like my excuse to go. I need a reason to be in London, basically. And I guess I didn't feel like I could navigate London without sort of a full-time structure of studying or something at that point in time. And yeah, simultaneously, I was asked to be in Bodicea, all-female hip-hop crew, which was an amazing experience as well. And then also met Renegade early on in my journey there and started training, and that's where I met the likes of you, Ella, and so many others that are, you know, still breaking and still in the scene today. So yeah, and from that, I guess I've graduated 2014, so the last 6 years I've been working in the dance industry in various capacities, and yeah, it has informed the person I am today, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll talk a bit more about your career later, because, you know, Emma's only 28, but she's done a lot. We've just been kind of going through all the things that you've done. Wow. I know there's so much more to come. I don't think we've seen all of you yet, but you know, you've done some amazing jobs. But I'd love to kind of dive into the breaking scene, your kind of journey on the breaking scene. You know, you have Scotland to talk about as well, but we kind of share that journey in London, and just maybe a bit about kind of that experience training under Renegade. We were kind of invited, a collective of women, right? We're invited to this kind of particular training group, but which kind of grew, right? It was like there were other people coming in and coming out. How was that experience? And, you know, like for me, Emma is just an incredible breaker. I love watching you breaking. I love watching you battling. And I kind of feel like it would be really nice to see you battling more and to be, you know, like competing on an international level with a UK crew. So yeah, it'd be cool to just hear a little bit about that, about the UK scene and your journey within the UK scene.
Yeah, so that's like a big, I mean, there's a lot in that question, and I think I don't know how much I can unpack right now without, yeah, but I'll try and do my best, because I think it's a really complex one. As someone who I think, you know, thrives in the battling scene and the competitive environment, I guess I always felt that I could better that and develop that more in a crew, in a kind of crew, like a high level sort of well-established crew that I could learn from, because essentially I'd come from, you know, I was a novice in a lot of ways, you know, and often like quite a lone wolf, and I did have interactions with crews in Scotland, but at that time I was really a beginner, you know, so I was really looking to kind of be almost taken under the wing of like a group where I could be nurtured and really, yeah, I guess thrive even more in battling with a team, and I come from being a team player, you know, I've played football all my life, and I know that that's way better than playing on your own, right? So I guess like I've found that to be a difficult thing to navigate, because I've not had that crew in London. You know, there was like we were training obviously with Renegade, and there was like, and that was, you know, there was initially, it was a group, you know, initially I was just training on my own in London Bridge, and I remember my first session at London Bridge, and Sam Allison was like the first guy who was like, hey, what's up, and was just really friendly, and
Yeah.
I mean, that was my first London Bridge session, but also it was back in Trock days, so I'd be going to Trock and just training with anyone and everyone who was at Trock, and that was an amazing place, because that was where I first kind of saw others like Crump. I don't think I'd really seen Crump up close until Trocadero times. But yeah, I think right back in that time, I was so hungry to just do and see everything, that I was everywhere at every event, and like trying to battle with anyone. Everyone was like, "Meh, give me opportunities, teach me." So I'm sure there's also a lot of things I'm not remembering as well. But yeah, Chalk Days and London Bridge Days was a lot of like solo training or training with people. You know, random people would come in and show me some things, and I would work on them, and you know, so. And then eventually we got with we was training with Renegade, and there was just a bunch of us training with Renegade. Female group, known then as a female group, and then there was mixed sessions happening as well. That was, I think we're around more like 2014, 2015 times. My timelines aren't very good, but I think there was always also a real like separation, or at least I definitely felt there was like a big separation on what was possible for the women to achieve versus the men. However, that being said, obviously a lot of the guys had been breaking like longer, but then I think when I saw the newer gen of guys coming in and how they were then taken into crews and nurtured and helped through, I guess like I definitely felt like, oh, what about me? You know, what about all the things I can offer? What about my growth? What about me getting to be a part of it? And I think that's where I'd always like come full circle back around to, you're just not good enough, you know. But there was also a lot of things that I knew that I could only get better at when put in these environments.
Yeah. I love that. Sorry to butt in, but I love that when they say pressure makes diamonds, and I think it's so true in terms of breaking or in terms of any skill. Like you need to kind of have that network, that family that are saying like, we believe in you and you can become that diamond. So carry on, please.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's it really, and I guess that can be for a number of reasons, but I think that's always been a bit of a sticking point for me, because it's not necessarily felt like the most accessible route into crews, and also that could be for a number of reasons, but I think gender does play a big part of it, and the way that maybe a woman's value is seen or not seen in the scene. From my experience being in London. So again, it's hard to say what that would be like in other places or how it's valued, or you know, but like for example, going to New York in 2016, I felt more valued there by complete strangers than maybe I had felt in the UK at a certain point in my training. So it's really interesting to see where, like, what, you know, actually level, not necessarily meaning a barrier to potential or to like your worthiness to grow, and you know, like kind of how can you be a finished product if you're not nurtured through the levels of that? Do you know what I mean? And you kind of only learn from putting yourself out there, and it definitely helps you by being in a crew that you have to kind of give you all these advices. And you know, I can probably count on this hand maybe the crew battles I've been in. They haven't ever been with, like, apart from when I was with Heartbreakers, like they haven't been really with a crew that I'm with, you know. It kind of like be a group of us going, hey, who's battling on that day, shall we get together? So it wasn't like, okay, we've sustained ourselves over a long period of time as a crew to build up for this battle. And I think being quite organized and quite, you know, I was ready to train, I was ready to commit. I kind of almost felt like I had all these things that were ready to go, but there wasn't that bridge for me to get over to actually be a part of it. And again, it's like, these can also be for a number of reasons. I'm not saying it's only about my gender, but I am saying that I have always come up against these like invisible glass ceilings because of my biological sex, you know, at various points, or it's been very prevalent like throughout my life. And again, as a positive person, I don't kind of wallow in those realizations, and I don't like to blame external people or events for the way things, you know, go. If anything, it's been like, oh, I need to get so good that I can't be ignored, you know. And sometimes that's possible and sometimes it's not, you know. Also, you go further together than you do alone, you know. So I think it takes a real mix of genuine community, caring for and nurturing growth. And that being said, I did learn so much under Renegade in terms of the drills, in terms of the fitness, in terms of the stamina, technique, and would have really, I guess, just loved that a bit more push from like a crew being behind me, and seeing my potential as a dancer a bit more, as it just felt quite like a bit of a lone journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, if we look at you now, for example, in Boy Blue's piece, like, you really, it's almost like you were recognized, like you really shone. So it really resonated what you said about like staying positive and like keeping on the grind, almost like, you persevered and you've kind of come through, and now you're doing some really amazing things. So congratulations. It'd be lush to hear a little bit about your experience with Boy Blue.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and of course, like, this is also, as someone who isn't only just one thing, like, I also train contemporary dance, I also do choreography, like, so also I'm aware that, the requirements maybe for a breaker just breaking, being in a crew might be different, and my kind of like path has always been about doing more things as well, and diversifying like my skill set. So getting Boy Blue's latest production was like a big highlight in my career, because Boy Blue's a company I've watched for like over 10 years, and I honestly needed that job. I was like, I need this job. But for it just, everything about it aligned, like all of the rehearsal, the audition process was like intense, like super intense. I think we did like 3 separate auditions for it. So like I knew that I had earned my place. It was a space where it was very vulnerable. We were all very vulnerable, and we were all really facilitated really well to be vulnerable and like be there for each other. So it was just like, I had the best time. Like, every single person in that company just, yeah, really enriched my life, and I'm really, honored that Kenrick trusted me with, the role that I had, and yeah, being a part of the company. Yeah.
Cool. So it'd be really cool to like take this on a journey around, like, because we've been talking a lot about kind of like those gender roles and those ceilings in terms of breaking. Like, if you've experienced that at all within your kind of career, your performing career, or your paid career as a dancer, if there are kind of gender expectations or gender ceilings that you've experienced. Sounds like with Kenrick that's not an issue, right?
With Boy Blue, like, I at no point did I feel that I was seen through any other lens than who I was. And I can truly say that is like one of the very few jobs that I've truly felt that way. And I think that's also directly corresponds to how I was able to give more to the project and be seen more in the project, because I felt free, and I think that the way Ken and Mikey created that atmosphere to allow us all to shine and be ourselves is like real testament to them, and yeah, I guess just like them seeing all of us for our powers and our, potentials was really cool. But yeah, to answer the other question, yes, I have seen the ceilings and the restrictions of, like, again, it's just like me being judged on my appearance, in the wider world, and like assumptions being made about that. The same goes for, in the dance industry, and I guess in different aspects of the industry will have different issues. So in breaking, where I can move like how I want to move, I can largely be free. I can be free to do all of that because I'm doing the technique of breaking, which doesn't have a gender to it. However, we're operating in a very gendered scene with and a very heteronormative, very cis male, macho, masculine, whatever you want to call it, scene that also in turn can then treat the women in different ways, and it doesn't always stay consistent for, you know, being praised for moving like a boy. It can flip, so it does depend on a lot of different factors, to you know, and there doesn't seem to be like a consistency of like, we're going to celebrate you because you move like this, or we're going to celebrate you because you move like really girly. Like, kind of just,
I want to dive in onto that conversation as well, because that's like in itself is so interesting.
Like I've seen both. I've seen myself be praised for moving the way I do, and I've seen myself be the opposite for moving the way I do. So like, but again, that's not going to change because the way I break is the way I break, and it doesn't have anything to do with my gender.
Can we stay with this conversation and we'll park the other conversation?
Yeah.
So this is so interesting, and it's so like, to offer my, you know, I remember being told in that training space that we were talking about, Ella, stop dancing like a girl, and it used to piss me off so much. Like, you know, first of all, already the word girl, you know, I was an adult at the time, so already, you know, there's so many layers of that. But to be told to be who you are is not right, and to be in the body that I'm in is not what I want to be in, was such a head blag of a space. And for me personally, I chose breaking because I wanted to, you know, I had a career previously in Latin dance, so I was doing a lot of salsa and a lot of samba, and I wanted a space where I didn't have to be judged on my gender or on my body. Like, my body wasn't becoming a thing, an exotic thing, or a, you know, a thing to be on display. I was just dancing. But then to be told not to be dancing like a girl just used to, like, you know, it really go up.
Like, bring you back to this idea, like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What
the fuck? Who am I supposed to be? Because I definitely know what body parts I have. So now I'm really confused. Like, you know, well, what am I supposed to, how am I supposed to express myself? So that was my personal experience.
And I think maybe for me, like, it's been the opposite, where I just would break like a guy, you know, and that for me, I probably was happy about, because I was just breaking the way I was breaking, and that was seen as a positive, then great. But then that also really can turn on its head really quickly and then be used against you as well. And I mean, I think this is maybe more so a commercial dance industry issue, but like, one of my first experiences doing a workshop with, I'll say their name, Rude Eye Agency. They had two members, male, female, come out to lead these workshops. This was in Edinburgh before I moved down, and I was, you know, it was advertised as a popping and a locking workshop or something. And so I thought, I'm doing popping and locking, right, as you do, right? And I was wearing, like, you know, baggy t-shirt and like long, like, basketball shorts. So, you know, also I'm 16, right? You know, I'm a child, essentially. And, you know, at one point in this class, he leads a mock audition where he eliminates us, you know. Which, first of all, coming to a workshop, I was like, holy shit, this is scary, you know. And yeah, it was like, I was very new to dance, you know. I'd like done my bits of breaking in my living room, you know, and I had just remembered like getting down to like the final four, and then him basically telling me, you're not going to make it any further because you're not dressed sexy enough. And I just like it's like, to look back at that now, like, for me, I had no desire of appealing sexually, you know. I was like, this is not why I'm dancing. I'm not dancing to appeal sexually to you. I mean, that even blew my mind. Like, at the time I was like, what? Yeah, right. But you know, that could have really negatively affected someone else, to the point where, you know, they then like, look at what's happening. Like, there's so much like hyper over sexualization of young people, young girls that are dancing, and like this crossover of like into the commercial dance world. And then if we look at all the grooming that's happening in the dance industry, you know, you kind of like look at this through line of like over sexualizing young women and girls and making them seem like their value directly correlates to that sexual appeal. And you know, I was specifically told I'm cut from this mock audition because I'm not sexy enough, when that was nothing to do with the dancing that we had just done. That was directly about sex appeal. So I know that that's kind of gone off on a little tangent, but these things can't be ignored because they all feed into each other. And this notion of dancing like a boy or dancing like a girl comes with so many other things. And I'd guess if I had to choose, I'd always felt like I wanted to dance like a boy then, if I have to choose, because dancing like a girl to me meant like dancing sexy and like that, you know, or like dressing in a way that I wasn't comfortable dressing, or presenting my body in a way I wasn't comfortable presenting my body. You know, I had come from also a skill just purely about like playing football. It's a game, it's a sport, we're trying to win, we want to be the best. You know, translate that into dance. I'm just want to dance, I want to get better. You know, and it kind of like realizing all the politics that come with that I can't just be me in this body and progress like without having that pressure of like you have to be sexy, or you have to do this shoot in heels, or all women have to come to this casting like this. Or, you know, I've been at a B-girl casting where when I had longer hair, this is recently actually, a big casting for a big, you know, big commercial, like a lot of money, looking for B-girls. I'm like, oh, they're looking for B-girls, great. So, you know, I go, and then basically I'm told, why didn't you wear your hair down? You know, they said to me after I threw down my shit, like, why didn't you wear your hair down? So, I mean, I was like,
I just did like all the amazing moves I just did.
I was like, what has that got to do with anything? Like, if you want my hair down, I mean, but for the woman that told me, for her, she was trying to do me a favor, because she's like, I know what these casting directors want. They want a really feminine girl. So she was like, you know, you have to make yourself more feminine so the casting director is going to choose you. And I'm like, yo, like,
yeah,
the quota for a B-boy is already filled. So I'm too much like a B-boy, I'm not going to get that job, because they need a really feminine girl to be the B-girl, and they need, you know, the B-boy can probably be whatever the B-boy looks like. I don't think it's as
yeah.
You know, I'm sure the B-boy can have long hair, like the B-boy can be themselves, you know, but the B-girl, you know, I mean, at least it wasn't specified on the brief. So if there is a real specific need for the B-girl to look a certain way, that must be specified on the brief. Yeah. But it did feel just like a big waste of time. Of course, I didn't get the job, and the person who did get the job is an incredible B-girl. So that, like, all credit to her. However, I do know that she's like very girly. So, which is absolutely no discredit at all. That's brilliant. But it's interesting that there seems to only be that option available. So if you know, I can't be the B-boy because I'm not, you know, and I can't be the B-girl because I'm not. So who am I in these situations if I'm not, I don't fit into either category? And what that results in is like you not being seen. And I think that's why ultimately the diversity and representation needs to be like widened, so that you see like so many more people.
And we've talked about that a lot, actually. Like, we've still got the question that we haven't answered yet, but you know, we've talked a lot about like voices and like spaces where we've been silenced. We like that keeps on. That's kind of a recurring conversation that we have in general when we chat. And I think that's really important what you said about like, then you're not seen. Like, how do we, you know, is there a way we address this? How do we continue these conversations so that we create spaces where everyone can be seen, and it's not that you have to fit into these specific boxes and words. Like, you know, even we've been talking about the word "be girl," like what kind of a word that is, what that implies already, you know, like yeah. So do you have any wisdom about the spaces, or how we create more voices, or how we continue to enable voices on the scene? I know there's a lot happening right now in terms of people speaking up and no longer being silenced. But yeah, it'd be great to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, my brain is just trying to like configure itself.
First, the longest question ever.
Yeah,
question.
Repeat certain parts of it, but like if I just go to the B girl, B boy terminology thing, obviously that's, you know, since breaking came about, it was B boy, B girl, breaker, B boying, you know, and it's obviously important to, like, you know, acknowledge the history of where something comes from and why it kind of comes about, you know, and of course, you know, at that point in time, it's just used to distinguish, you know, a boy from a girl, a woman from a man, and those have now become categories where you battle. I mean, the b-boy battles are open for anyone, and the b-girl battles are open for b-girls. And I've always been an advocate for having these b-girl battles, and the reason being is because until b-girls are given the same opportunities and the same representation, visibility, and and opportunities to battle and better themselves, better ourselves, or whatever. To until that point, we can't really abolish category. You know, we need category first to establish the categories that there are.
Wisdom.
However, that being said, then we come back to the binary of gender, and it's like this very Olympian, like, where does the lines of gender cross and intersect? And the more we look at gender, the more we realize you've gone away. The more we realize you've disappeared. Quite fitting. But like, the more we try and define gender as like, okay, you're a girl up until this moment, and now you're a man. You know, like, you know, the more that they say the Olympic committees have tried to put a bracket somewhere, it always seems like it's been, okay, if a woman gets too fast on a sprint, she must be a dude. and then suddenly more tests are needed to establish, and it's like, oh, she's got more testosterone, right? But then also, you can't necessarily link more testosterone or less testosterone to better or worse performance, because they've done these studies and they've noticed that in two races, that's where testosterone has a bigger advantage, but not in all. I mean, I need to do more research on that, but I've been listening to a lot of like scientific podcasts about gender, and also with chromosomes. You know, initially they did it with chromosomes, the XX and XY, but then they realized that people don't all have XX. If you're which one's which? XX is for a female, right? So they went XX is female, XY is male. Am I right with that? I think so.
I want to check, but yeah.
I feel like the Y is like
if you got that wrong, it's the other way around.
Oh yeah, exactly. You make up your own mind. But XX for female, XY for male. But then they've realized that some females are XY and some males are XX, or some females are XXY. So actually, the more we look at chromosome makeup, they realized that wasn't actually a defining factor.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I could be going really far away from this whole b-boy, b-girl category thing, but I think I personally would be happy to compete as a biological sex female in the b-girl category if that allows me more opportunity, representation, visibility, and chance to actually battle and progress.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think that without any category existing, what happens is a lot of people don't get seen, and I think some of that is to do with level, but some of that is to do with like unconscious bias and gender bias and things like that. So I think it's progressing, but it's too soon, I think, to just kind of abolish a category, because we're not yet at a place where I think women have had an equal footing in progressing.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
And also on that, I think there's no need to keep over-gendering a space. So I see so much over-gendering happening to B-girls, so much. B-girl, ladies, B-girl. Oh, look at the lady on it. She's doing it for the ladies. Come on, give it up for the ladies. The B-girl's on the floor, and I'm like, yo, will you chill the fuck out?
Right.
There's just no need. There's just no need. You're not going, B-boy on the floor. He's a B-boy, everybody. He's a man. He's doing it for the men. He's doing it for all the men in the world. Come on, man. Let me hear you, man. Come on, give up, man. Man, damn, boys. Come on, boys. Like, you don't hear the same rhetoric there. And this is like, male and female MCs are guilty of doing this,
Yeah. Just there's a film that I recently watched. It's a French film where they reverse the world, and so the women are in power. Have you seen it? It's called.
I feel like I've seen like a bit.
Oh, it's so good. What is it called? I can't remember, but I'll put it in the comments below. But it's so funny, like that, when you point out the kind of like, those alternative world things, when you kind of go, oh yeah, that's really messed up, like.
And for me, like, I'm particularly sensitive to it. So as soon as all I need is one thing and I'm disengaged from an event, and I cringe so much of the time with that it just loses my, like, you've lost me, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm not part of this world anymore. This world, I'm an other in this world. And I'm even more an other in this world because maybe those terminologies don't resonate personally with me as well. So I'm even more removed. And it just kind of like, then the more and more I'm like, am I really included in this scene? Is this really a scene I want to be a part of? And like that kind of, those questions I've come back to so many times. There's been a number of training sessions, numerous, I've left in tears because I've not been seen, I've not been heard, I've not been helped, I'm not being valued. And I want to go where I'm valued, I want to go where I'm loved, I want to go where I'm appreciated, and I also have so much to give others too. So if that's not seen in the scene that I'm in, then shit, do I just have to like, and maybe that's where, the response is, yeah, bye, and actually there is nobody cares, right? This idea that nobody cares. And I think this nobody cares attitude is really a shame, because why would nobody care? Why does no one care about each other? Like, why is that the rhetoric that's being like reminded to all of us? Oh no, but nobody cares, so just get better. And I feel like that's so dangerous and dismissive of like all of the hierarchies that exist, and that's not, and that's just like, we can't, it's like the people who are oppressed know what is happening and know what it feels like, and they're the people we need to listen to, and we right now across the world we have like oppressed women, and I think women have been trying to say things for so long and have so easily been dismissed as
silenced.
Just get better, you're just a piece of ass, like, you're my bitch, like all this kind of stuff is like, just you stay where you are because you're talking shit. And I think it's so dangerous if we do that to any group or minority of people. And there's so many marginalized people that need to be listened to, need to be heard, and need to be facilitated in as in the people that are not the oppressors need to facilitate, need to do their own work and their own shit to be better people, to make the world a better place. Like, otherwise, what the fuck is the point? And I think if the scene keeps just going, nobody cares, just get better, shut up and just keep dancing, like, that is, then what changes? Like, how does anything change? What is the scene saying about homophobia? What's the scene saying about transphobia? What's the scene saying about accepting non-binary trans identities into like, there's so many things that it's not just about sexism and misogyny. It's there's so many things, you know?
Yeah.
How does it, like, how does the breaking scene accommodate Black women? I mean, like you know, there's just like there's layers to everything, and without, you know, intersectionality, you can't look at one thing without looking at the other and start to peel back all of the layers.
So, you know, it makes me think of, like, you know, the small act of ignoring relates to the big act of ignoring oppression.
100%. And it's like, how do we, you know, if everyone takes it upon themselves to take responsibility, first be aware of the privileges that they have, and then be aware of the people that don't have those privileges, and then understand you know, the differences that different people face, like able-bodied people, for example, like the privileges that we have as able-bodied people, you know, like what, and then you start looking at accessibility in a different way and go, flip, you know, we're not accessible at all.
There's such a journey on this, being a better human being, such a journey on this empowering of the self, but also empowering of others, and almost like living. So I've been doing a lot of work around boundaries and consent, that idea of like, how can you impact the world without permission? And, you know, karmically, like if you think about it, like karmically, of how do you continue to help the undoing, and to be seeing everyone as equal to you, you know, without assuming you can take anything from them. So yeah, it feels like it's connected.
And that's where also it's like, you know, how much of a voice should I really have, you know, in this conversation about hip hop culture as well, you know, like who, like again, I'm aware that I could be overstepping boundaries right now, or I could be taking right now without knowing. And, you know, and so that's where I think I always come full circle to this idea of like gratitude and giving back, because so much of what, you know, hip hop culture is about giving back, you know, and paying it forward. So there's also like, anytime I think I'm lacking in something also means I need to be like, actually, what am I giving to?
Beautiful.
But feel though, you know, like,
yeah.
you know, every time I get stuck in this like, and I don't think I get stuck so much anymore, but it's like ignoring that there's a problem is different than going, okay, there's a problem, but I'm still going to move in this way, and I'm still going to give back, and I'm still going to do this, and I'm still going to, you know. And I think there obviously is an element of frustration when I look at what could have been possible looking back, but then I look at the progress that has been made, and I go, wow, so maybe not for me, but for the next generation, right? And
I think you're contributing to that in many ways, Emma, you know, both in like the career that you've had, but also in like the specific things. It'd be really nice to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing, because, you know, we know that you are not afraid to speak up for others. And, you know, for example, your Just Giving campaign at the moment, it'd just be really nice to hear a bit about some of those projects. I'm aware we've still got the unanswered question, and whether it feels relevant anymore, maybe that's gone, because we kind of covered it in a journeyed way.
Was the unanswered question about
it was about like within the, like more of your career rather than just the breaking scene, like how gender roles have come into play, if you feel like you've been kind of put in gendered boxes, or if you feel like you've experienced the ceiling, like more within the performance industry, the dance, you know.
I think I think there's been a lot of cases where I have been celebrated for my differences, and there's also been a lot of cases where I've like felt like there's been a regression in certain environments where I've been like, I guess any time that I feel uncomfortable is when I'm in a very gendered space, in a very binary gendered space, where I'm put in one box as a biological female. That to me is where I always feel very restricted, because it just reduces, it feels like I'm reduced to this one label, which has all these connotations, and it has to mean all these things that I don't necessarily resonate with, which also, yeah, of course.
It's about if that's because I'm really resonating with this, and for me it's about like society stereotypes of what those boxes have to be, rather than like, so for example, that kind of like binary of female is often about certain ways you're supposed to behave and look and stuff that actually hasn't got anything to do with the body parts. They're there to do with like this, this historic kind of creation of gender that's for me, like in my Kundalini, I'm a Kundalini teacher as well, in case you didn't know. We talk about masculine and feminine. Everyone has masculine and feminine, and different like levels of, it can be 60%, 40%, or somewhere in between that. And the idea that maybe gender is a construct, like something that society has made up, rather than it being a thing to do with body parts. That's my question.
I mean, that's definitely, I feel like gender, much like sexuality, is like a sliding scale, maybe not a sliding scale, but like a spectrum. It's not, man doesn't mean this and woman doesn't mean this. So yeah, definitely this is about society's views on gender. And I think society's views, and we say society, but we are society. So like people make up society, and I think this is where it comes back to individual responsibilities of like, if you hold any, unconscious bias or whatever, I mean, again, it's going to be unconscious. So it takes an active, like, noticing it around you and going, oh, maybe I did look at that person a little bit differently because of X, Y, Z, or because he was wearing this, or because he looked like that, or and kind of checking yourself as and when, because it's not even going to be as easy as like just suddenly going, oh, I'm aware of this and now it's never going to happen. Like it's like undoing all of this. And I think that the hard part is when, I think the more that we know our own boundaries, as well as our own privileges, as well as the wider context that we're in, we can start to I guess like a lot of problems I've come up against is when I've felt like my boundaries were crossed, but I didn't know how to vocalize that, or be in a space where I had the voice or the power to make change. So now I think I've got a non-negotiable set of boundaries, right? That I know when a boundary's in it crossed, I'll know, okay, this is what I'm going to say, and like if I'm not respected, or the space is not one where that's where they want to change their views, then I can remove myself from that space. And I think that is something that I kind of have, I guess, wanted to do in certain circumstances before, but I need to pay my bills, and I've worked so hard to get here, and it's been so many years, and blah blah blah. And I think now I'm at a point where I'm like, even in spite of all those things, I can still walk away, because again, if it's about making change, then maybe I have to do something that someone else hasn't been prepared to do before, to actually make a point, or expose a problem that is, because it's so difficult with like microaggressions and things to actually say this is what's going on, because all you have is a feeling that I don't feel right, this doesn't feel right, I'm getting this like vibe, and then you're often like made to question your own like your own self, to a point of like annihilation almost, where you then lose faith in your own voice, and then that can spiral so much for anyone who's oppressed in different environments. So about this gendered society, like we can't keep I don't know, there's this belief that we can't make change, and this belief that we can't change the world because the world's out of our hands, but we have certain amount of power within ourselves and our sphere of influence that we can make change within. So but again, because we're so silenced for different things, like anyone's silenced for, my advice upon graduating was don't rock the boat, literally that's what I was told, to like, don't rock the boat, and I think I've been rocking boats since day one by accident, because that's just like apparently who I am. But I don't want to rock any boats that will be detrimental to anyone's mental health or humanity, but I want to rock boats that need to be rocked because there's a problem.
a really cool name for a rocking crew.
Whoa! But
Emma.
I don't know, I think I'm waffling, but also I want to like just come back around to like there's so many wonderful, incredible things about hip hop culture that have like given me purpose and drive for my life, and like that can't, none of this negates the other. These are just kind of like, this specific talk is about addressing what it is like to be a woman, I guess, in hip hop, or perceived as a woman in hip hop. And to kind of skim over that and say it's all fine, for me, I think is a disservice to all of the women that are in the scene. So I don't want to do that. I want to kind of go, this has actually been really hard, but I'm still here. So.
And you're smashing it. To finish, is there anything that you would like for people to know about stuff that you're doing?
Sorry,
or maybe kind of if you have any like just offerings that you're like, I really want to say this to the people watching. Yeah, places where we can connect with you. For example, we're doing our auction soon.
Right, yeah, so because I know you brought this up earlier, Ella, like so I set up a Just Giving page a couple months ago, 2-3 months ago, and it's nearly at $4,000 right now, which is incredible. And it's for anti-racism charity Show Racism the Red Card, and the aim is it's a $5,000 target, and it can be found on my Instagram, which is ELL Shortbread UK. I actually forgot my handle there. I was like, what the hell?
Look down there, there's the handle.
Down there, apparently, it'll be here. And the link is there on my bio. So if you want to spread the word and or donate, that would be amazing. The money will go straight to the charity, and the money is for anti-racism education for schools. And Show Racism the Red Card often uses like high-profile football players as well to kind of promote the message as well, because I think there's a lot of there is a lot of racism going on in football, and obviously that is a huge place where people, like all types of different people, go to watch football. I don't know why I'm talking about football so much, but it's more so about the education happening in schools, and this need for educating people from yay high all the way up, so that the unraveling can be hopefully
amazing,
lesser of unravelage. But that's one thing that's happening right now. Mentioned it, and Rain Crew have been sort of heading along with like a bunch of us from the scene meetings about tackling racism, and they're also doing a tackling racism, tackling sexism, tackling LGBTQ plus issues. So they have got some workbooks available. I don't know how widely, I'm sure they're basically for us to use, for me to use. I can pass them on for anyone to use who's wanting to make change in these areas in our sector moving forward. So there, I don't know if I can link to Rain Crew below.
Down there, just down there, there's the link to Rain Crew.
Yeah, if anyone wants to talk about anything that we've spoken about, then feel free to send me a message if it's resonated. If I've said the wrong thing and you want to correct me and be like, don't say that thing, can you say this instead? Please, anything and everything is welcome, apart from maybe just saying horrible things. That would be
So love, yeah,
love.
So good education. Thank you so much, Emma. It's always a pleasure. I love our conversation. It's really exciting to be able to share a conversation with the world. And thank you.
Thank you for having me.